Have you ever heard of someone being fined, not just a measly $50 for parking on the wrong side of the street, but a whopping, eye-watering mortgage payment size $23,480 for a property they don't even own? I know, right? Sounds like the opening scene of a particularly twisted sitcom, or perhaps the fever dream of a tax auditor after a particularly rough day. But trust me, folks, this ain't fiction. This, my friends, is the absolutely certifiably true story of Theodore Cranebridge, or Theo, as we'll affectionately call him, and his utterly bonkers battle against the tyranny of, wait for it, a homeowners association. Now, before you roll your eyes and mutter something about Karen and entitlement, let me assure you, this is no ordinary HOA horror story. This is a tale of bureaucratic overreach so monumental, so breathtakingly audacious, that it makes Attila the Hun look like a slightly grumpy librarian. And it all started with a dream. Theo, bless his soul, was a man of simple pleasures. He wasn't some Wall Street wolf with a penchant for caviar and yachts. No, sir. Theo dreamt of chickens. Yes, you heard me right. Chickens. He yearned for the gentle clucking, the fresh eggs, the sheer pastoral bliss of raising a flock of feathered friends in the tranquil countryside. So, after years of slaving away at a soul-crushing desk job, something involving spreadsheets and the agonizing silence of corporate cubicles, he finally pulled the trigger. He cashed in his meager savings, took out a mortgage that would make his accountant weep, and bought himself a sprawling 15-acre farm on the outskirts of Pleasantville, USA. 15 acres of pure, unadulterated potential for chicken-related shenanigans. Imagine the scene. Theo, fresh off the bus from the city, standing proudly on his new land, the wind in his thinning hair, a glint of hope in his weary eyes. He envisioned rows of sunflowers, a vegetable garden bursting with ripe tomatoes, and of course, a coop overflowing with happy, egg-laying hens. He was finally free from the soul-crushing monotony of corporate life, free from microwave lunches and passive-aggressive office memos, free to embrace his inner farmer. Of course, the universe, being the gleefully sadistic prankster that it is, had other plans. One seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning, as Theo was gleefully shoveling manure, yes, the glamour of farm life, he received a letter. A crisp, official-looking letter with the ominous words Lakeside Paradise Homeowners Association emblazoned across the top. Now, Theo, being a reasonably intelligent human being, chuckled. Lakeside Paradise? He muttered to himself. What in tarnation is Lakeside Paradise? His farm wasn't anywhere near a lake. Paradise was a bit of a stretch considering the state of the dilapidated barn, and most importantly, he wasn't part of any HOA. He'd specifically checked that before buying the property. He'd even made the real estate agent sign a blood oath promising there were no meddling HOA busybodies within a 50-mile radius. He figured it was just junk mail, a desperate plea from some marketing intern trying to drum up business for a gated community filled with Stepford wives and perpetually manicured lawns. He almost tossed it into the compost heap because, he was a farmer now. But curiosity, that pesky little gremlin, got the better of him. And that's when the bombshell dropped. Inside, nestled between layers of glossy brochures and legalese so dense it could probably stop a bullet, was a notice. A notice of violation. A notice of, and I quote, egregious disregard for community standards and aesthetic harmony. And, most horrifyingly, a notice of fines totaling, wait for it, $23,480. $23,480 goddamn dollars. Theo stared at the notice, his jaw slack, his eyes bulging. He reread it, convinced he was having some kind of bizarre, manure-induced hallucination. But no, the words were still there, mocking him with their bureaucratic precision. He had apparently violated a whole laundry list of HOA regulations, including but not limited to unauthorized livestock, excessive landscaping, too much green, not enough concrete, allegedly, non-approved exterior paint color, and, my personal favorite, general lack of conformity, whatever the hell that means. Theo, normally a mild-mannered, pushover type of guy, felt a rage building inside him. A slow-burning, righteous indignation that threatened to erupt like a manure volcano. $23,480. That was half his mortgage. That was enough to buy a lifetime supply of chicken feed. That was, well, you get the picture. He tried to reason with himself. It had to be a mistake, clerical error, a prank by some bored teenager with too much time on their hands. But deep down, a chilling premonition told him this was no accident. This was the beginning of a war against the forces of conformity, the tyranny of petty rules, and the sheer unadulterated audacity of the HOA. So, dear readers, I ask you, have you ever faced the wrath of an HOA? Have you ever been fined for the crime of existing? Share your stories in the comments below, because trust me, you're going to need the moral support. Because this is just the beginning. The story of Theo's battle against the Lakeside Paradise HOA is a wild ride, filled with petty grievances, escalating conflicts, and a healthy dose of sweet, sweet revenge. Stay tuned, because things are about to get gloriously, hilariously ugly. What do you think Theo will do next? Go nuclear? Go to court? Or move to a new town far away from any HOA? Theo, still radiating indignation after reading the HOA's ludicrous notice of violation, did the sensible thing he called the enemy. He grabbed his dusty landline, because chicken farmers don't have time for fancy smartphones, and dialed the number on the dreaded letter. After battling a phone menu designed by a sadist, he reached a human. Lakeside Paradise Homeowners Association, Brenda speaking, radiating false cheer. "How may I assist you?" she robotically chirped. "Brenda, Theodore Cranebridge here. Got a peculiar letter today. Seems there's been a slight error. My farm? Not in your HOA, pretty sure." Theo's voice dripped with forced politeness. Brenda, bless her bureaucratic circuits, didn't miss a beat. "Address? Please." He recited it, expecting a miraculous, "Oops, wrong Cranebridge. Our bad." Nope. Brenda pecked away, then, with that same infuriating cheer, declared, "Mr. Cranebridge, your property is listed. You are a member." Theo nearly swallowed his tongue. "But, impossible. Checked it all before buying. Not near Lakeside Paradise." Brenda's tone turned condescending. "Sir, according to our records, your property is within our designated boundaries. You are subject to our rules, and those fines are due promptly. Have a pleasant day." Click. Theo slammed the phone down, face the color of a beet after a marathon. A mistake? No, this was something far more sinister. He was too enraged to name it. Days turned into a seething montage. Theo researching HOAs, discovering a cesspool of power-hungry Karens and bylaws more absurd than Monty Python sketches. Drafting increasingly angry letters that he never sent, because passive aggression wasn't his style. And plotting increasingly elaborate revenge fantasies, involving manure catapults and rogue chickens. Then she arrived. One sunny afternoon, a gleaming SUV pulled up to Theo's farm. Out stepped Karen, the queen bee of Lakeside Paradise, the embodiment of suburban tyranny, the reason minivans have tinted windows. She was everything Theo imagined, and worse. Hair perfectly coiffed, designer sunglasses perched on her nose, a clipboard clutched in her manicured hand like a weapon. Behind her, a gaggle of HOA enforcers in matching polo shirts, suburban stormtroopers, ready to enforce the HOA's iron will on anyone daring to grow a weed out of place. "Mr. Cranebridge?" Karen's voice was a perfectly modulated blend of sweetness and condescension. "I'm Karen, president of the Lakeside Paradise Homeowners Association. We've come to conduct an inspection." Theo, still in his manure-stained overalls and sporting a 3-day beard, felt a surge of defiant glee. This was it, the moment of truth, the opening volley in his war against the HOA. "Inspection?" he said, raising an eyebrow. "I wasn't aware I'd invited anyone for an inspection, or that you had any jurisdiction here." Karen smiled, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Mr. Cranebridge, we've already established that your property is part of our HOA, and as such, we have a right to ensure you're adhering to our community standards." She gestured dramatically with her clipboard. "And from what I can see, you're in flagrant violation of several of those standards." "Oh, really?" Theo leaned against his pitchfork, trying to look nonchalant. And what violations might those be, pray tell? Karen launched into a litany of complaints that would make even the most seasoned HOA veteran weep. The chickens. Too many, apparently, and too noisy. The vegetable garden. Not enough lawn. Too much vegetables. The barn's paint color. A hideous shade of red that clashed with the harmonious beige of lakeside paradise. The overall rustic aesthetic, which, according to Karen, was bringing down property values. And of course, she added with a triumphant smirk, there's the matter of the unpaid fines, $23,480, Mr. Cranebridge. It's quite a substantial sum. Theo's eyes narrowed. Miss Karen, with all due respect, my farm is not part of your HOA. I have documentation to prove it. You have no authority here. Karen's smile vanished. Mr. Cranebridge, I assure you we do. And if you refuse to comply with our regulations and pay your fines, we will be forced to take legal action. She paused, letting the threat hang in the air. We wouldn't want that, would we? It could get messy. Theo stared at her, his anger hardening into resolve. He wasn't going to back down. He wasn't going to be bullied by this suburban queen and her army of polo shirt minions. Bring it on, Karen, he said, a wicked grin spreading across his face. Bring on. Karen's veiled threat hung thicker than the smell of chicken manure on Theo's farm. He knew she wasn't bluffing. HOAs, those bastions of beige and bureaucratic bullying, had more lawyers than common sense. He needed a plan, and he needed it fast. First, he dug up all the paperwork from the property purchase. Deeds, surveys, title insurance, the whole shebang. He laid it all out on his kitchen table, meticulously combing through every clause and subclause. The paperwork confirmed what he already knew. His farm was outside the lakeside paradise HOA's jurisdiction. Boom! A small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Next, he consulted a lawyer. A real lawyer, not some ambulance-chasing bottom feeder. He found a local attorney named Sarah, a no-nonsense woman with a penchant for power suits and a healthy disdain for HOAs. They're trying to bully you, Mr. Cranebridge, Sarah said, after reviewing his case. They're hoping you'll just roll over and pay the fines. Don't. She advised him to send a certified letter to the HOA, outlining his case and demanding they cease and desist their harassment. Theo, being a good citizen and desperate to avoid a lawsuit, followed her advice. He wrote a scathing letter, carefully worded to avoid any legal pitfalls, outlining why the HOA had no authority over his property. He even included a diagram showing the exact boundaries of the HOA, highlighting the fact that his farm was clearly outside those boundaries. He signed it with a flourish and sent it off, feeling a sliver of satisfaction. He waited and waited. Radio silence. The HOA didn't respond. They didn't acknowledge his letter. They didn't even send a passive-aggressive email. They simply ignored him, hoping he'd eventually cave. Theo, however, was not one to be ignored. He realized that playing nice wasn't going to work. He needed to fight fire with fire. He needed to get creative. That's when he remembered something. During Karen's inspection, she'd casually mentioned something about the HOA's finances being a little tight. She'd also seemed unusually stressed about maintaining property values. It was a hunch, but it was enough to spark an idea. Theo decided to do a little digging of his own. He started attending HOA meetings, armed with a notepad and a suspiciously cheerful demeanor. He asked seemingly innocent questions about the HOA's budget, their spending habits, and their long-term financial plans. He quickly realized that Karen wasn't being entirely truthful. The HOA wasn't just a little tight on money. It was hemorrhaging cash like a leaky faucet. They'd overspent on landscaping, renovations, and a particularly disastrous community-building event involving a bouncy castle and a flock of escaped geese. More importantly, Theo discovered that Karen had a history of, let's just say, creative accounting. Rumors swirled about her previous HOA gig, a gig that ended rather abruptly after some discrepancies were discovered in the budget. Theo smelled blood in the water. He started subtly spreading these rumors around the community. He'd strike up conversations with his neighbors, casually mentioning Karen's financial expertise and hinting at the challenges the HOA was facing. He made sure to do it with a concerned tone, as if he was just worried about the well-being of the community. The seeds of doubt were planted. Then he took it a step further. He created a fake social media account, posing as a concerned Lakeside Paradise resident. He started posting anonymous tips and questions about the HOA's finances, gently nudging people to demand more transparency and accountability. The community started to get restless. People started asking questions. They started demanding answers. And Karen? She started to sweat. The pressure was building. Theo knew he was close to breaking her. He just needed one more push. And then the universe, being the gleefully sadistic prankster that it is, delivered. Theo received a package in the mail. An anonymous package containing a thick file of documents. Documents detailing Karen's previous HOA scandal, including emails, financial records, and even a few compromising photos. Someone somewhere wanted Karen gone, and they were willing to help Theo make it happen. He smirked. This was going to be fun. Theo clutched the anonymous package like it was the Holy Grail, or, at the very least, a winning lottery ticket. Inside, the documents painted a picture of Karen far more scandalous than he could have imagined. Apparently, her previous HOA presidency ended with allegations of embezzlement, misuse of funds, and a whole host of other financial shenanigans. The photos? Let's just say they involved a questionable karaoke night, a suspiciously overflowing margarita machine, and a former HOA treasurer who looked perpetually uncomfortable. Theo, a man of simple pleasures, chickens, had never considered himself a master strategist, but the universe had handed him a golden opportunity. He was going to unleash the social media kraken. He meticulously scanned every document, every email, every compromising photo. He cross-referenced the information, verified the dates, and prepared his digital arsenal. Then, he logged into his fake social media account and hit post. He started subtly, a few carefully worded posts hinting at Karen's past, asking questions about her leadership, and encouraging people to do their own research. He included a few strategically cropped photos, just enough to pique their curiosity. The response was immediate. People started commenting, sharing, and digging for more information. The anonymous tips he'd been planting started to sprout like weeds in Karen's perfectly manicured lawn. Then he dropped the bomb. He uploaded the entire file of documents to a secure file-sharing site and posted the link on his fake account, along with a message urging people to examine the evidence for themselves and draw their own conclusions. The internet exploded. The Lakeside Paradise Facebook group went nuclear. People were outraged, shocked, and demanding answers. Karen's past misdeeds were laid bare for all the world to see. The local news picked up the story. Lakeside Paradise HOA president accused of embezzlement. The headlines screamed. Karen became an overnight pariah. Theo, watching the chaos unfold from the safety of his farm, felt a surge of vindication. It was working. His plan was working. Karen was crumbling. But he wasn't done yet. He knew that the internet's attention span was notoriously short. He needed to keep the pressure on. He needed to go viral. That's when he decided to create a video. He spent hours editing together clips of Karen's past appearances at HOA meetings, interspersing them with excerpts from the leaked documents and a few strategically placed sound effects. Think dramatic stings and cartoonish wah noises. He added captions, snarky commentary, and a catchy soundtrack. The result was a masterpiece of satirical outrage, a viral sensation in the making. He uploaded the video to YouTube, titled Karen's Lakeside Paradise, a tale of greed, karaoke, and questionable accounting practices. He shared the link on his fake social media account and waited. Within hours, the video had thousands of views, then tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. It was spreading like wildfire. People were sharing it, commenting on it, and creating their own parodies. The video became a symbol of the fight against HOA tyranny, a rallying cry for the oppressed homeowners of America. Karen, meanwhile, was in full meltdown mode. She tried to scrub the video from the internet, but it was too late. It was everywhere. She called the police, claiming she was being harassed and defamed. But the police, after watching the video themselves, just shrugged and told her to take it up with YouTube. She tried to sue Theo, but his fake social media account was untraceable. He was a ghost in the machine, a digital phantom haunting her every waking moment. The HOA members, realizing they'd been duped, started demanding her resignation. They held emergency meetings, passed resolutions, and threatened to call in the FBI. Karen, her reputation in tatters, her career in ruins, was finally facing the consequences of her actions. Theo, watching it all unfold from his farm, couldn't help but smile. Karen's world imploded faster than a poorly constructed McMansion in a hurricane. The viral video, the leaked documents, the sheer weight of public opinion. It all came crashing down on her with the force of 1,000 angry internet trolls. The HOA members, realizing they'd been led by a wolf in beige clothing, demanded her immediate resignation. An emergency meeting was called, a vote was held, and Karen was unceremoniously booted from her position as president. But the consequences didn't stop there. The authorities, alerted by the mountain of evidence Theo had unearthed, launched an investigation into Karen's past financial dealings. Accountants swarmed Lakeside Paradise, poring over spreadsheets, scrutinizing invoices, and generally making everyone's lives miserable. It wasn't long before they uncovered a web of shady transactions, hidden accounts, and outright embezzlement. Karen, it turned out, had been using the HOA's funds as her personal piggy bank, funding lavish vacations, designer handbags, and a rather impressive collection of porcelain cats. The charges were filed quickly. Embezzlement, fraud, money laundering, the list went on and on. Karen, once the queen of Lakeside Paradise, was now facing serious jail time. As for Theo, he received a formal apology from the new HOA president, a meek, nervous man named Bob who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. Bob, trembling like a chihuahua in a snowstorm, assured Theo that the HOA had no intention of pursuing the fines and that they acknowledged his property was outside their jurisdiction. The HOA even offered to pay for Theo's legal fees as a sign of good faith. Theo, ever the pragmatist, accepted. He also received a flood of messages from grateful homeowners, thanking him for exposing Karen and fighting for their rights. He became a local hero, a symbol of resistance against the tyranny of HOAs. But Theo, being the humble farmer that he was, didn't let the fame go to his head. He just wanted to be left alone to tend to his chickens and grow his vegetables. And that's exactly what he did. He went back to his farm, put on his overalls, and started shoveling manure. The chickens clucked contentedly, the sunflowers swayed in the breeze, and the world seemed a little bit brighter. But the story doesn't end there. A few months later, Theo received another anonymous package. This one contained a single photograph. A photograph of Karen, dressed in an orange jumpsuit, scrubbing toilets in a county jail. Theo stared at the photo for a moment, a mixture of satisfaction and pity washing over him. He hadn't wanted to ruin her life, but he felt she deserved what she got. He crumpled up the photo and tossed it into the compost heap. It was over. He had won. He had taken on the HOA, exposed their corruption, and reclaimed his freedom. He had turned the tables on Karen, the queen of suburban tyranny, and watched as she crumbled under the weight of her own misdeeds. And he had done it all with a little bit of humor, a lot of ingenuity, and a healthy dose of revenge. Theo continued to live a quiet, peaceful life on his farm, surrounded by his chickens, his vegetables, and the sweet smell of manure. He became a local legend, a cautionary tale whispered among HOA members for years to come. The moral of the story? Don't mess with a farmer who has access to the internet. And never, ever underestimate the power of a well-placed viral video. As for Karen, well, let's just say she learned a valuable lesson about the importance of honesty, transparency, and not stealing from the HOA. And maybe, just maybe, she learned that porcelain cats aren't worth a prison sentence. So there you have it, folks. The tale of Theo Cranebridge and his epic battle against the Lakeside Paradise Homeowners Association. A story of revenge, redemption, and the glorious triumph of the underdog. and a reminder that sometimes the best way to fight tyranny is with a little bit of humor, a lot of research, and a whole lot of chicken manure.